My name is Avalon Doherty, and I'm going to be talking about Shel Silverstein. Specifically, I want to focus on his impact on children's poetry. Now, to begin with, Shel Silverstein's major impact is that he lacks a consistent rhyming scheme and rhythm pattern in his poetry, unlike Roald Dahl or Dr. Seuss. Silverstein's poetry structure changes with each of his poems. So Mr. Dahl has 8 syllables in each line with an AABBCC rhyme scheme, and Dr. Seuss has an anapaestic tetrameter with the same rhyme scheme as Mr. Dahl. But Silverstein is just undefinable. So here's an example of Mr. Dahl's work. Each line is 8 syllables, and the end rhymes matches the AABBCC. So cash, nash, there, mare, nu, ku, ah, ma, sun, dun, shield, deal, ja, ha. Now, Dr. Seuss actually has a specific meter, rhythm structure to his poetry. So it will emphasize on the 3rd syllable. So on the 15th of May, in the jungle of Nul, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool. And that progresses throughout all of his works. But Silverstein, on the other hand, lacks a consistent rhyming scheme and rhythm pattern. There simply appears to be no structure with his poems. One poem will look this way, but the other will look differently. So in Falling Up, it's just a series of repetitions and near rhymes, while in Invitation, this one actually does have a rhyme scheme to it. It's A, B, 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 A. So in, liar, buyer, fire, spin, and in twice more. And then this poem, I talk about it in my research essay, has the exact same structure and rhythm pattern as a limerick, which is the AABBA. And then here's another example of his poem. This one has a series of repetitions in it, and it does have some rhymes to it and near rhymes as well, but it's inconsistent because this is just the next poem after the previous one, so they do not match. Like I said, he has very undefinable rhythm and rhyming schemes to his works. So Silverstein's impact on children's poetry proved that you no longer need to be consistent with your style to be considered a children's poet. It basically changed the implicit rules of popular poetry, and I think the best example of this is with his most famous work, The Giving Tree. So Silverstein in The Giving Tree uses plain and poetic styles. The book appeals to readers of all ages because of its use of repetition, consonants, and assonance. So here's the opening pages of the book. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. Every day the boy would come, and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. So gather her leaves is an example of assonance. The vowel sounds are similar with the gather and her. Come make crowns king climb. This is an example of consonants. The consonant sounds of the C makes the crunch of the leaves and the crunch of the apples that the boy is biting into. This is sound imagery. And then there's the repetitions of the words and would throughout the novel. So there is no consistent rhyming scheme or rhythmic patterns in The Giving Tree. The poetic style is limited to the repetition of words or sounds, and the prose throughout the novel is full of monosyllabic words, which is basically one-syllable words. And this vastly differs from works by Dr. Seuss or even A.A. Milne. However, one of Silverstein's greatest differences is his controversial narrative. This children's poet presents a book with a sad ending. This is something children's poets avoid. I would say that this is one of his greatest impacts upon children's poetry because no parent wants their child to read something with a sad ending. However, Silverstein looked at this and he thought, well, that doesn't apply to real life. In real life, there are children who are dealing with something sad. So he wanted a book, in a sense, that could relate or a child that could relate to the book. So Silverstein's poems and illustrations demonstrate a keen insight into the mind of children, with a slapstick humor, wordplay, and the ability to encourage his audience to think about a broader range of topics and emotions, especially with his sad endings. They're not uncommon in literature, but it was at the time extremely unpopular for works considered for children to have sad endings. So Shel Silverstein changed the implicit rules of children's poetry for the better. And my research essay specifically uh, delves deeper into the impact that he has.